Welcome to another edition of Flashback to the Track. As always, I'm a guy named James in a room surrounded by sound deadening and memorabilia. And he's Mark, and he's in a room surrounded by shelves and a window. At least he has an escape route.
Not sound deafening stuff, which is probably how you can hear that reverb. But, you know, we'll get there one day. I'll have a studio in my home. I could just start doing the podcast from the closet, probably. That'd probably work, but...
It's just $25 like on Amazon. You just buy
it's too dark in there. Yeah, but then I gotta put it on the walls. That sounds like a lot of work.
So. Just put it on some cardboard, and then you put some like 3M in between. A little like...
See, you told me it was $25, and now you've thrown 3M on there and cardboard. It's like the accessories. That's what kills you, man. They're like,
it's only... I had that stuff laying around, so it was free $99 to me, man.
Well, I don't.
Especially the glue. I mean, that was sitting around since college. I was like, man, when the heck am I going to use this adhesive glue I had to buy for freshman year art class that I only used once? Well, 6 years later, I did use that.
I use glue. I only use Flex Seal. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure like they're just gonna be like, thank you for using our product, but that is what we call overkill.
Yeah, it's never coming off the wall. But you know,
you don't stick it on the wall with the glue. You stick the glue onto the cardboard, and then you take the 3M on the back of cardboard, then you stick it with 3M because it's like Velcro.
I do have some Velcro kicking around for like pedal boards for my guitar, you know, so you can put the pedals on the thing. So you know what? I do have some stuff laying around.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, I was laying around a lot the last couple of days because I hurt my back. So yesterday, James said to me, Mark, let's take a look at this race and let's talk about it. And I was laying on the couch because I hurt my back and watched this race, and we wrote some notes, and you know, because that's what we do in this podcast. But James, this podcast wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for our friends at Blue Emu.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would be like, Mark, what the heck are you doing? Why aren't you using Blue Emu right now to help with soothe the tired muscles and joints that could be in your back? I mean,
I had a Blue Emu recovery bath today. I had one today to help soothe my back, and it helped. So, you know, I'm a big proponent of the Blue Emu recovery bath. I think it's my favorite Blue Emu product, James.
Yeah, well, you know, my favorite Blue Emu product is every product because they all work so fantastically, and you can get them at major retailers like Walmart or even find them on Amazon. So go get yourself some Blue Emu and know there's no cute code from us to give you anything. So we'll work on that. You know, maybe we'll have something else. We'll have maybe a giveaway or something too, because there are some talks in the pipeline about that. So we'll see what Blue Emu wants to do in the future. But yeah,
Mark, official partner of NASCAR too, we should say. So, you know, support companies that support NASCAR and support us. That's the big one too.
Exactly. So, Mark, you said you were sitting around when I guess I texted you this. So we had a script originally planned, and I was researching it. I was kind of finding some dead ends, and I'm not really comfortable unless I really can understand a topic or learn about a topic. And that's really what the point of this is we really like to learn, and every week we learn more about a specific topic as we write a script and present it to you, the viewer and the listener. But you know, I was finding some dead ends with it, and I didn't feel comfortable. So you know, inspiration struck from something else, and we landed on this, which is, I think, a very interesting topic to talk about with everyone. I think it has a lot of possibilities. So, Mark, where are we going today on this podcast?
James, we are going to the happiest place on earth. We're going to Walt Disney World.
Oh, Walt Disney World. That's right. We're not going to the land of Disney. We're going to the world of Disney.
We're not going to Disney's California Adventure. We're going to the original Disney. We're going to Disney World in Orlando, Florida. In fact, I actually believe it's in Celebration, Florida is the exact address of Walt Disney World.
It's just about like maybe 20 minutes south of Orlando, slightly southwest. But yeah, it's not technically in Orlando. I don't think this track is technically in Orlando too. I don't think it's in Celebration either. I think it's in Lake something or Florida. Lake Vista,
it bears
Florida.
The name Walt Disney World Speedway.
It does. And that might haunt some people. That might excite some people. That does nothing for me, even though I grew up in Florida, which is weird. But yeah, we're going to look at a race at Walt Disney World Speedway. Not any race. The first race, IndyCar's inaugural Indy Racing League event, the Indy 200 at Walt Disney World Speedway. Wow. So, Mark, this is an IndyCar race, but it's an Indy Racing League event.
but it's not. So
It's it's counterintuitive. It's weird. I don't know. History says it's an IndyCar race, but in the time period, it wasn't. So we'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, I mean, just to initially talk about Walt Disney World Speedway, that's first off, a place where, Mark, I'm from Florida. I never went to Walt Disney World Speedway. I always heard about it, and I did watch the two truck races from Walt Disney World, which were bangers. Trucks raced really well there at that track. But beyond that, man, I never knew about it. But did you ever go to Disney World ever in your life?
Oh God, yeah, I've been to Disney World multiple times. I went when I was a young child. I went again like when I was like 10. And then my wife and I went a few years ago. Actually, it was like 6 or 7 years ago now. But we went just like the two of us. But we did it like all in one day, and that's not. I don't recommend that. You'll want to kill yourself by the end of the
Unless
day.
you're just doing Epcot in one day, then that's perfect because you won't
Yeah,
spend that much money.
Epcot's great, but we did all of them in one day, all the parks, and it was just like, yeah, it was too much.
How much Adderall did you guys take before the
I only
departing?
really wanted to go home one time, but you know,
Was that in a line or after a ride?
yes, it was in line for like It's a Small World at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was like, yeah, no thanks. But we stuck it out, and then we found air conditioning, and then we were happy again. So, no, it worked out.
Well, that's good. Well, I mean, then at least neither of us have been here because probably if we went in our more older period of like adolescence, I would say probably teenage years, we would have went to the Walt Disney World Speedway. That was basically just a driving school, a place you can go to the Richard Petty driving experience, or what would eventually have like exotic driving experiences, or even the IndyCar driving experience, I think it was, or something like that, basically where you drive Indy cars. So we didn't really miss much post professional racing at this track, man, but like still really weird that Disney has a racetrack. And that's kind of what inspired me to write this script, because like I said, I'm from Florida, West Coast Gulf side of Florida, so Orlando is always a hop, skip, and a jump. And I went a few times when I was a kid. I went myself. I paid my ticket as a kid. My family didn't take me, forget them. No, my family took me. We always did like winter trips, which was interesting because to think about it, in the wintertime, Disney has a slow period, especially at the end of winter, which I always thought was weird. I thought the wintertime, a lot of people would want to escape and come to Florida and like take that like bucket list trip to Disney or see the coast or something. But apparently it was always a dead period, which I never knew about, which, didn't make sense to me. But then again, as a kid, Mark, we were growing up and we'd see these races from Walt Disney World, and you think Disney is a pop in place and everything to everywhere you want to be, but apparently it's not.
Yeah, well, I don't know about you, man, but every time I've been there, it's been incredibly busy. So, does Disney have a slow time? I have no idea, but
I
it's
mean,
always
like,
been crazy.
yeah, it has periods where it's like, I would say from what I've heard from cast members, where like, capacity isn't really at peak, but like the park is, profitable, but like, everything isn't packed. So, I would assume like a slow period is kind of chill. Definitely a day you want to go and like take advantage of all the rides. But, then again, slow period also might mean a lack of hotel reservations, or, a lack of visits to specific experiences or parts of the park. So, I don't work at Disney, so I don't know what the heck is
Are
slow
you
period
and
means.
Kaylin Disney people?
No.
You're not Disney people, right?
Oh,
No.
no. It's funny because, like, especially going to art school, you really learn the dark side of things. So you really get to kind of see a little bit of the back curtain stuff that happens at Disney. And I've had a bunch of friends who have worked as cast members or interned as cast members at some capacity. I know a few people that work there. I mean, I don't really know them. Like, we don't talk anymore, but like we knew each other at one point. So I guess like, to long-windedly answer your question, Mark, I really don't care about like the Florida theme parks unless it's Busch Gardens, because that's always a fun place. And plus, you can go like buy a ticket, like I think it's like $60, $65, and then you get the annual pass if you're a Florida resident. So like you buy once and you basically get to come back the rest of the time period. That's a cool place. And also it was on Kyle Busch's car in an Xfinity race that I remember once. Yeah, so but that was the Virginia Busch Gardens, which is a place I'd like to go to. And also another place, fun thing about Busch Gardens, man, they got the best roller coaster, straight up. Like they got the more intense ones, and I like a little bit of thrill seeking when I go to an amusement park. So I like to go on a roller coaster. So yeah, Disney doesn't have that. They have Space Mountain, which is pretty nice though.
The only theme park in Florida that I really want to go to is if you get on the I-4 from Orlando and drive towards Tampa. I can't remember exactly where it is, but on somewhere on the right side of the road, I remember if you're driving towards Tampa, there's like a dinosaur theme park that advertises tickets for like 18.95. And one day I'm going to go. I'm going to stop at that dinosaur theme park and check that out. So that's the one I really want to go to. But
It's funny
yeah,
because like I think it's called Dinosaur World, but there's also a winery right down the street. So Mark, if you really want to do it right, you go get drunk at the winery, then you go pay your $18 and you go to Dinosaur World and you just have a fun time. A little bit blitz, but I mean, maybe you can have some non-alcoholic wine. They do make that.
it's called juice.
Nah, you don't. You no, you just need non-alcoholic wine. It's not called juice. It tastes like bread. You're drinking bread. Bread made from
Bread is
grapes.
delicious. So going into, let's talk a little bit actually just about kind of the history of Walt Disney World Speedway. We've kind of gone off topic, but yeah, Disney
Yeah.
people,
So
man. There's Disney people that live around the corner from me. Everything on their house is like Disney license plate, all that. So that's why I wanted to
yeah,
ask.
no disrespect to Disney people, but
No, not
like,
at all. I'm not trying to
yeah,
like diss on Disney people.
we're not Disney
I just
people.
think it's kind of weird.
We're
I'm
we're
sorry.
racing
Like I
people. We
like
what gets us all geeky and nerdy is weird and racing stuff.
exactly.
And what gets other people geeky and nerdy is Disney, and that's cool. That's cool.
And
Each their own.
that's
But
perfectly fine.
so, Mark, let's like specifically talk a little more about the situation we're in with this podcast. So, like we said, it's a debut season for this thing called the Indy Racing League. Okay, so like, um, which is a big deal at the time. It's a new open wheel series, and they're going to run at a newly formed track in Disney. So it's really interesting. But first, let's start with a little bit of the Indy Racing League, which was formed in 1996 by Tony George, who ironically resembled Michael Damnman Eisner. You ever heard of Michael Eisner?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, do you see the comparison to him and Tony George? For the listeners, Michael Eisner was a former CEO of Disney World or at Disney Resorts and just Disney in general. He basically was the man who brought us Disneyland Europe and a bunch of other failed attractions, but he did bring some successful pieces too during his reign at Disney. So would you compare him to kind of like Tony George a little bit?
Well, Tony George being in charge of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and
Yeah.
whatnot, so kind of the same deal.
Yeah.
But Tony George, it's interesting story. So this whole start of the Indy Racing League, and it's something that like I've done a lot of reading about and could never really find like the definitive like what happened. And then James did some really good digging, and we managed to find like some legitimate info about this and watch some videos about it, about this sort of inaugural season. And the reason that it started is because like before this, there was only one IndyCar series, and then Tony George split off and started his own, the IRL. So that's why. So we kind of have to give you some background because it's it's a momentous occasion, this inaugural race for the IRL.
Yeah. So basically, with what George basically did was, he had a vision for a new series, something that was different from what CART was already presenting. And a big part of it being different was it was an open wheel series that would be raced on ovals, where CART was a mixture of ovals and road courses, mainly road and street courses specifically. Now, this new series was only going to be run on oval tracks, but run on different tracks and would have various chassis, various engine suppliers to choose from. Plus, Mark, the biggest thing at this time period in open wheel racing, gives you the best opportunity to make the Indy 500. Because really, if you were only running in this Indy Racing League, you could only make the Indy 500. It's crazy to think about at that time.
Yeah, so Tony George, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway kind of owned the Indy 500, so he took it to this new series called IRL because he kind of fell out of favor and came disillusioned with the CART owners, which at the time Championship Auto Racing Teams, It was a group of all of the owners running in, now it's going to get confusing, in what was called the IndyCar World Series at the time, which we refer to as CART. That's just what we're going to call it, just to save confusion. So
Yeah, it's I mean, it eventually became cart, so that's what people know it as. And that's the thing, it's like in this time period, it's really weird to look back on because a lot of the history just doesn't make sense because there's all these split offs. But it was more or less, to be quite honest, we're gonna, just rap about it. It was more of an ego war, dude. Like this stupid like mixture of, this race is bigger than this series, and this series matters more than this race, and I'm more important, and I'm the one who brings the fans. I make the money. It was just a big back and forth conflict, really, that just boiled over into what became of a split in open wheel racing in North America.
yeah, and to be 100% honest, like obviously the Indy 500 is the biggest event in IndyCar,
Oh yeah.
in open wheel racing in America. So whoever owns the Indy 500 is really going to have like all the chips on the table. Like they own the Indy 500. So Tony George takes it. He starts a new series, the IRL, based out of IMS, and it's going to be all ovals. CART's going to continue to do their thing. They actually started a rival race called the US 500 on the same
Oh
day
yeah.
as the Indy 500, but they did it in Michigan. So kind of funny, but it was an interesting time. Like you said, this big ego war of like, we want to do, like Tony wanted to do more of like a developmental type series where guys could come up the ladder, because CART was really a very international series. There's a lot of international drivers in it, and this was supposed to be something that was American, that went back to USAC roots in the 60s of being on oval tracks, and the heyday of guys like AJ Foyt and Johnny Rutherford and all those dudes. So that was really the reason why George wanted to start this new series.
Yeah, not just any kind of oval tracks, man. Dirt ovals, drivers in midgets and sprint cars. Really, that was who they wanted to bring up. And to your point, yeah, like a Mario Andretti, AJ Foyt, Johnny Rutherford, all of the unsers, they all came through this dirt background, and that was kind of lost. That transition was gone. Probably the biggest example throughout the 90s is Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon was like destined to be in an open wheel car. And it's crazy, like especially like later in life, how I learned about that, especially through some documentaries, saying like Gordon was like destined to be an Indy car, and then just couldn't be in an Indy car because he didn't have the money and he didn't have a road racing background. And that's the thing, you got a plethora of grassroots drivers, a lot of ones that Mark and I got to see in the Chili Bowl event that we covered, that kind of gave us a little more perspective of the grassroots side of open wheel racing, and more or less how oval track racing has a grassroots, a really big grassroots with sprints and midgets. And it was something that Tony George kind of wanted to bring back. You respect the man for doing it, and rightfully so, because if you think about it, like at the time, CART was more or less looking out for a lot of the bigger teams. There's a lot of conflict of interest, especially with a guy like Roger Penske having ties with engine manufacturers as well as being a team owner. And of course, all the team owners were on the board at CART, which was good because everyone in theory would have equal say, but really it just wasn't like that. And George was one of the guys who saw that. And that's probably why he was like, man, I want out. And then another interesting thing I kind of notice is, like, if you think about it, you saying that Tony George had the Indy 500, it's basically because it's the George family has the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So like, think about it, CART was the sanctioning body for every single event on the IndyCar schedule except one, and that was the Indy 500, because George's family ran it, and George's family, before the death of USAC, when CART rose in the late 70s, early 80s, USAC still wanted to be the sanctioning body specifically just for the Indy 500. So there's this one race out of a year where the CART guys just weren't under the CART regulations. They were under a different set of regulations. And to them, that was a conflict too. So there was conflicts on both sides, really. No one was in the right in this like situation for the split to happen. But like, it's just crazy that this happened, because Mark, man, this doesn't do open wheel racing any justice in America, because it just makes it more of a split between the niche fans of open wheel racing. For casual people, this doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it makes it really confusing is the big thing. And even when I was a kid growing up, so late 90s, early 2000s, I had Champ Car and the Indy Racing League. And I was like, how are these different? And then it was like, okay, so one's on ovals and one's on road courses. Okay, but IndyCar does some road courses now. It got super confusing. And I imagine, like, if you're a fan in the 90s, like James and I were talking about this earlier, oh, this car, I'm just going to go watch NASCAR. Like, that's really easy to understand. And there's only one, and they go in a circle, and it's great. Like IndyCar is just a little bit confusing. And the thing is too, like, how is Tony George's new series going to survive? Right. So everyone's going to stay in car because it's prestigious, right? We've got all these races. Well, he's got the Indy 500, and he's going to get people to stay because he came up with this rule called the 25-8 rule. So if you're not familiar with the Indy 500, there's 33 cars start the Indy 500. No one is locked in. It is all on speed. In 1995, Emerson Fittipaldi and Al Unser Jr., driver for Penske, both missed the race. Both former winners of the race. They were not fast enough on bump day, and they were bumped out of the field. Tony George came up with the idea, well, I'll convince people to run all my IRL races, because if they're a full-time competitor, they'll automatically be locked into the Indy 500. They won't have to qualify, and they'll get a huge payday, because I'm telling you, if you win the Indy 500, you're like set for life. You win a lot of money. So,
oh yeah, back in the day, I think it was like, at this point, even winning the pole was like $100K. It's a good amount of money back in the day.
That for running 4 fast laps, like that's pretty good. And he said, well, okay, so the top, if we get 25 full-time cars, they'll all be locked in. You at least have to attempt every race, and then we'll lock you in the 500, but then we'll have 8 open cars. So he was actually hoping that some of the kart teams would come and run the Indy 500, because they'd still have an opportunity to do so. And maybe some teams would run both series. He made sure that his series never conflicted race dates with kart, so teams could run both. But as you mentioned earlier, kart went and did their US 500 on purpose the same day as the Indy 500 to compete against Tony George's first Indy 500 in 1996. But it's really a story for another day, James. We gotta get into more of this inaugural IRL event.
Exactly, because kart wanted to go to more exotic places, like Brazil and wherever they went in Germany. Well, you know what? The IRL was like Belgium. They went to Belgium.
Surfers Paradise. The track that was they went to Australia.
Yeah, I remember they went to Surfers Paradise, and they also went to Italy too, didn't they? Or was it Spain?
They went to a few places in Europe. I got to look that up, but
yeah,
they did. They went everywhere. They went to Canada. They went to a bunch of Mexico. They went to a bunch of different places.
If there was a street race, they were there. If it was legal, a legal street race on a closed course. But no, so yeah, kart went to some exotic places. IndyCar was like, you know what? We're going to go to the most magical place on earth, and we're going to have a race. So you might be wondering, how the heck does Walt Disney World Speedway play into all this? Well, the thing was, Walt Disney World Speedway did not exist until Tony George had a wonderful idea, and that was to somehow contact the Walt Disney World people and be like, hey, you know what would be great on your facility is a track. Now, I don't know if that's really what happened, but, think about it through Disney's standpoint. Disney is a place where people go, and Disney tries to keep you on their property at all times. Okay. Every experience you think you want to have in Florida could probably be had at Disneyland or at the Disney World Resort, because they got nightclubs, they got beaches, restaurants, a bunch of other random attractions that
ESPN Wide World of Sports is there. Come on.
I don't know if that's still there, but it was there. That was like some of the stuff. There was a lot of random things. And one thing that attracts people to Florida specifically is motorsports. It's a destination for people throughout the country and internationally. So what if Orlando had a racetrack? That track could compete with Daytona. So yeah, you have something that competes with Daytona International Speedway, but you're not only going to host races, you would also sell packages to fans, crews, teams, officials, the series, for them to stay on the Disney property. So it's a win-win for Disney in their mindset. And with that, they basically worked with IMS Events Incorporated in 1995, and they started breaking ground on this track, which is funny because like Indianapolis Motor Speedway constructed this track, and eventually you would have a NASCAR race on there, Mark, which is funny because like it's an Indy track, but it's got a NASCAR race.
Hey, well, NASCAR went to Indianapolis in 1994, so we NASCAR and IndyCar. What's that meme where like the guys have their arms together? We're just better together. It's just the way it is.
I mean, yeah, and you also think about it too, like how much of an influence did a guy like Bill France have on Tony George? Because like Bill France owns the Daytona International Speedway, which hosts the biggest race in stock car racing, the Daytona 500, a sport defining race. Tony George's family owns the Indianapolis 500, a sport defining race. And now he's starting a series. It's kind of similar if you think about it. It's almost like the NASCAR pattern. And what was the most poppin' motorsport in like the mid 90s? NASCAR. So it's all NASCAR's fault. This is all NASCAR's fault. But this speedway was also built on a budget and a schedule because it had to be prepared and ready to go basically for January for this race. That's what Tony George's deadline was. This track was specifically built to host this Indy race and Indy Racing League events. So the tracks, catch fencing, the pit road area, that was all built, and that was built as a permanent fixture. That was always in place. But temporary bleachers, the restroom facilities, those were all erected year by year. So that would more or less go on fan attendance projections to understand exactly how much capacity they would have to have for seating. So with all of that, basically Disney World built this track for $6 million. That's a super low investment on Disney's end, dude. That's like nothing. Chump change.
That's like when you wrote these notes and I saw it was $6 million, like that's impossible to build a racetrack for $6 million. Like,
yeah.
Man.
And with an original brick from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway somewhere in that track, it was only $6 million. And, it was more valuable as parking lot space recently. So I guess that's why it's not in existence anymore. The land itself is so valuable because of its location on the Disney property. So that probably was nothing. I'm probably sure that land is worth more than $6 million.
Yeah, that's like nowadays. Yeah, like they'll probably build some condos on there.
They're probably going to add solar panels there. It's
just field of solar panels.
They have a giant field of solar panels too.
Green energy,
really
folks, very important.
It's a lot of land. Think about it. Walt Disney bought all this swamp land in the middle of Florida that was really it's undevelopable land. Like you can't develop it, and he's built this thing. So yeah, in the end of this event, there was 50,000 fans in attendance, and the Indy Racing League would run events here from 1996 until 2000, and that was it. That was the end of professional racing at Walt Disney World Speedway. $6 million. Wasn't that a show, The $6 Million Man? How about the $6 Million Speedway?
The $6 million Speedway. Starring Lee Majors. We can rebuild it. We don't need much money.
Yeah. Steve Mickey Mouse Austin is the $6 Million Speedway. Coming to you next. So what was funny too, Mark, when I was a kid, I always thought this track was shaped like Disney, like Mickey's head. For some reason, I thought the track layout was Mickey's head.
Well, it just makes sense, right? Everything else there is shaped like Mickey's head. When I was 9 years old, I ate a pizza shaped like Mickey's head. So,
well, I mean, yeah, but no, it's like a mini Pocono with like a Mickey's head lake, aka Lake Mickey. So the Mick Yard is just a mini Pocono, which is that a big middle finger to CART? Just be like, F you guys, you couldn't go to Pocono anymore. Well, we went back and we built a mini Pocono. So
it reminds me of Nazareth a lot, actually.
A little bit.
But it's got more, it's not just a dog leg. It has more of a turn.
It makes me think of those little tater tots that are triangles. So it makes me think of Pocono. But the last fun fact about this speedway, of course, every Indy Racing League race had $1 million purse. So yes, you would walk away from this race with $1 million in your pocket. But not only that, you'd walk away with it before the Super Bowl, because this event was held the day before the Super Bowl. Because why not? Why not just have it, right when people are going to open the front page on Sunday paper or just look at anything news related before the Super Bowl, they would see an IndyCar race and be like, wow, that's amazing. Let me stop thinking about the Super Bowl right now.
Saturday races, man. We need more Saturday races.
I like the Saturday race, especially because the Super Bowl is in effect, but like if you think about it, it's like other than the niche people that are going to your race, the majority of people are just going to be like going to the Super Bowl or like paying attention to the Super Bowl, you know? So you're not buying for the peak time.
We should also clarify the $1 million purse is for the entire field. You don't win $1 million. The winner won $122,000, which is still a lot of money.
It is, but I mean, it could be better because you could walk away with $1 million. Just go to NASCAR, win a race, and enter the Winston. You can win $1 million. See, it's that easy, Mark.
So James, we're in the happiest place on earth, the most magical place on earth, and we have to have obviously the most magical broadcast crew for this event. And this event is on ABC. We're on we're on
World of Sports.
We're right up there, man. This is an ABC event, and all IRL races in 1996. They had an exclusive deal with it wasn't exclusive. I think didn't ABC also carry CART? Didn't they carry both of them?
I think they might have if there wasn't a scheduling conflict. Which there wasn't until I think a little bit later on, and they would announce, other than the US 500, there was another kart race that conflicted, but I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. I know the US 500 was on ESPN, but yeah, ABC was carrying this race and all the races because that's big. That's big in that time period because that's network money. That's the prime time spot.
First thing you want to do when you start a new series, get a TV deal. You got to get a TV deal because you got to get the teams return on investment for their sponsors. So,
oh man, no, yeah, you get the network deal. I mean, that's why Indy 500 was better than the US 500 because it was on ABC, not ESPN. More people had access to it. So
exactly, on cable channels. So,
but man, in the booth. Got the man, Paul Page. Shout out to Paul Page at Paul Page 500 on Instagram. That is the real Paul Page, and he's dope. He's funny. I never knew that he covered sumo wrestling back in the day. Danny Sullivan is up there. He's the 1985 Indy 500 champion, so he's credible. And of course, as always, we have Bobby Unser, 3-time Indy 500 champion. And that man's so iconic, dude. Someone needs to put a soundtrack of all his one-liners together because he has some funny one-liners when he's in the booth.
Oh, Bobby Unser's great, man. If you ever watch any interviews with Bobby Unser, he's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. IROC champion, Bobby Unser, by the way.
Exactly. I always loved when he covered IROC races, too. He was always the funniest person there.
And on pit road, we have Gary Gerald and the man whose name sounds like one name, Jack Arute. Jack Arute. I just like to yell Jack Arute because that's what it always sounds like when they throw down to like, we're down to Jack Arute. Yeah, it's like one name. It's like a Jack. It's like a Jack. Like a Jackaroo. Like a kangaroo. Yeah, okay, I'll stop.
Jackaroo.
And yes, James. At this time, Disney did own ABC, so they own the Speedway, and they own the network. So it just made sense.
That's good because I put that note in there. I wanted to make sure you knew that ABC was owned by Disney, which was weird. It was a recent acquisition too, so it was kind of one of those things where all of the it was like a triangle basically of things coming together.
They still own ABC. Viacom.
Oh yeah, I mean that was a worthwhile investment. Come on, Disney made a good move there.
Everything, man. They just one day there'll be like 2 companies in the whole world, and they will own everything. So
yeah, it'll be Disney and AT&T maybe. I don't know, but we'll see. Or it could be Camping World.
Oh, probably could be Camping World for all
Camping World owns everything. Yeah. But Mark, it's your time for your favorite pastime.
Strange starters.
What a strange person.
Yeah, these are strange. But I'll be honest, Mark. Here's the thing. We can't really say a lot of these starters are strange. I mean, we could make the case maybe for Stan Wallets and John Paul Jr., but let's be honest. How about we just try to name an IndyCar starter and maybe 3 or so things about them? Maybe we'll just do 3 IndyCar starters and a couple of fun facts about them. How about
because it's the first race of the series, so it's like, well, who's strange? Well, they all are. It's brand new, and we're not IndyCar experts, so
we're IndyCar enthusiasts. Okay.
I'm going to go with Arie Luyendyk as my first strange starter. Now, this is strange because Arie Luyendyk, he won the Indy 500 in 1990. He's an Indy 500 pole sitter. Was a guy who was somewhat successful in kart. He drove for Chip Ganassi Racing. He had some success, but all his career wins in kart were on oval tracks. So it really kind of just made sense that he would go to the IRL. So he is driving for Bird Liberal Treadway Racing. See, the thing about open wheel teams is you have to have 16 different names. It's very important that
That's
every
all the
rich
money.
guy get his name in there.
You got like 4 money guys coming in here. It's like, hey, we're all
Yeah.
important. Get my name up there.
Yeah. So he's driving the number 3, Jonathan Bird's Cafeteria / Bryant HNC. Reynard Ford Cosworth. That's the other thing too. I have to name engine and chassis manufacturers. Very important. Yeah, he had great oval prowess, like I said. So it just kind of made sense that he would go the IRL route. He was out of kart really in '95. He only ran a couple races and was kind of out of a ride. So when this opportunity came up, jumped on it and let's go oval racing. And he would be very successful for the next few years. So.
I mean, he was a really great oval racer. I always remember Ari Luyendyk as a threat anytime you would watch an Indy 500 in the 90s. He's like, man, where's Ari Luyendyk? He could like possibly win this race. Next up, how about Scott Sharp, driver of the number 41 AJ Foyt Enterprises? Lola Ford Cosworth XB. That's right. It's a sick Ford engine right there. At this time, Scott was just a Trans Am hotshot with a championship in his second full season of IndyCar racing. Today, we know Scott Sharp as an IndyCar veteran with 9 victories in 13 seasons, who's also won championships, not only in Trans Am, but also the American Le Mans Series. What's up, Scott?
Scott Sharp, man. And next up is, this is a great one. So it's the obvious one. Tony Stewart.
Obvious.
So this is the obvious one. Tony
Obvious.
Stewart. He is, I feel like that's the fun fact that everyone knows. Like, did you know Tony Stewart raced in the IRL? It's like, no, I didn't know that.
If it wasn't for the IRL,
Tony no one ever talks about this. I said to James the other day, I'm like, man, nobody ever talks about this. Why don't we ever talk about Tony Stewart's IRL championship? He is driving, of course, the number 20 Quaker State Glidden John Menard. So John Menard actually built his own cars, his own engines back then. So he's driving a Lola Menard V6. And it's just so great when you go back and you watch Tony Stewart in the IRL, because like it's before all the NASCAR stuff and you're like, yeah, this was his road. Like you said with Jeff Gordon, right? This was his road. He was going to be an IndyCar champion. He came from USAC. He was the first guy to win 3 USAC championships in one season in 1995. Next obvious step up was IndyCar. So he went IRL racing with John Menard. He would end up actually starting from the pole in that year's Indy 500 under some interesting circumstances, but he did start from the pole, and he would actually go on to be the 96-97. That's weird. They did a 96 season and then a 96-97 season. He was the 1996-97 season champion. So Tony
Just happened
Stewart,
to have one race in 1996.
Yeah, he was a champion in the IndyCar series. I think in a season where he only had like 4 podiums. But you know what? That's not what matters. What matters is you can never take that championship trophy away from Tony Stewart. So there is a great, like, there's a lot of interviews that Tony's done where he's talked about this. Look those up. Like, I love to hear him talk about his IndyCar days because he loved the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and it was what he grew up doing. You know, growing up in Indiana, it's what you want to do. And it's really cool, man. Then obviously he goes on and he wins 3 NASCAR championships, and we know all that. But yeah, this is a cool time to look back on for sure.
Oh yeah, young Tony. He's a really young Tony. Different looking Tony. He's cute though. Next up, we have Roberto Guerrero, driver of the number 21 Wave Shore Johnny Lightning Pagan Racing entry. Now this is going to be a Reynard Ford Cosworth XB as a second combination, and we've gotten in strange charters of that. Reynard Ford Cosworth XB, very nice. Now, Roberto Guerrero was the 1992 Indianapolis pole sitter. He also claimed 2 victories back in IndyCar, and that was in 1987. So what's interesting about Roberto right now is he is one of the few drivers, I think it was really only 2 drivers, that actually went to the Indy Racing League who competed in kart, which is really odd to think that, because the ties were like, if you went to IndyCar, you're exiled from kart, and Roberto definitely was. But Roberto, interestingly enough, was kind of one of the guys that Tony George and a lot of people disliked about kart, which was the fact that he was an F1 guy who didn't really make it in F1 and went to kart and had more success. And that's kind of what kart had become, especially during the late 80s. A lot of people from F1 would come over, bring a lot of international flair, but take away from the opportunities. But with that, Roberto has competed in F1, IROC, IMSA, and even attempted to qualify some NASCAR Busch Series races in the early 2000s.
And up next, we have Buddy Lazier, not Lazier, which is what I thought it was when I was a kid. No, it's Lazier. He's driving number 91, Delta Fawcett Raynard Ford Cosworth XB for Ron Hemmelgarn. And Lazier is a guy that, he started out racing in IMSA and he moved on to, some other open wheel series that are now defunct, like the American IndyCar series in the late 80s. He did some kart racing, but when he was in kart, or I guess the IndyCar World Series, he never really ran for any teams that were any good. So it was tough for him to find success. And, in 1996, he had the opportunity to enter the IRL with Hemmelgarn Racing, and he found his niche, oval racing, in this new series. And he went on to win the 1996 Indy 500. And he won 13 total IRL races and was the series champion in 2000. So Buddy Lazier, man, he was one of the first guys to just come to the IRL and be like, wow, this is really for me. And, was very successful, and it gave him a new lease on life, a new career. So
exactly. Now he was the star in the series instead of just kind of being one of the field fillers, which was a great opportunity for him. Hey, ladies, it's time to turn up because we have Lynn St. James in the starting field. She'll be driving the number 90 Lifetime Channel Maxi Lube entry for Andy Evans and Dick Simon. It's a Lola Ford Cosworth XB. It's a really popular engine. All three of my people have had Ford Cosworth XBs. Okay. Anyways, Lynn St. James was the first woman to reach the 200 mile per hour mark on a racetrack, breaking barriers. She has even made 7 starts in the Indy 500 and made 2 starts in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. During the 90s, St. James was also a figurative woman, a really key staple and representation of women in motorsports. And, every decade has their key players and people who take that role. And Lynn St. James definitely in this period was that face. She was definitely one of those people that turned heads. And, to me, she kind of made it almost normal to hear lady and gentlemen start your engines kind of in a race. So really great to get to see a race with Lynn St. James in it. She'd be a noted starter that I was able to name. So yay, I win. I don't know. It wasn't a competition.
No,
It's never a competition.
Everything's a competition.
No, I just try to find 3 people and I'm like, okay, who's going to be most interesting to look up? Cause we try to look up each person individually and put our own little facts in for each person. So we kind of make it more unique, and we also get to learn about the person. So it's kind of fun for each of us. But yeah, that's this episode's strange starters. We need to get a weird intro and song thing that goes with that.
Movie voice guy. Coming up next, though, we have to talk about, before the race is the pre-race. So the pre-race festivities in this race, James, are just absolutely incredible. You get the Florida A&M marching band, one of the best marching bands in the world, turning up. You've got cheerleaders in these crazy checkered outfits, balloons. It was built on a budget, the track, like you said, $6 million, but the pre-race show, they really just burned it down. They were like, let's spend money, and let's have an amazing pre-race show.
Yeah, they even paid to get Donald Trump there. Look, here's some photographic evidence of him with AJ Foyt, shaking hands, probably whispering secrets. I really wonder what they were talking about there. I genuinely want to know now, Mark. But yeah, this was a lot going on here. You know what they also spent a lot of money on too, Mark? That logo for this event. Geez, it's so 90, so edgy, so indie. But that costs a pretty penny. So also, Mark, man, this is cool. Really cool. The Grand Marshal of this event is none other than Walt Disney's brother, Roy E. Disney, chairman of the board. What a big deal. I mean, that's huge, Mark. I'm not just saying that because he's Roy E. Disney. I mean, I'm saying that's huge. They got him out of the boardroom on a Saturday.
Yeah, they got him to come down to Main Street Disney on a Saturday. Come on.
He was probably excited, actually. No joke. He probably was like, man, this is a cool thing. Walt probably never thought this could ever happen. Think about it. Walt Disney probably never thought a racetrack would be on his facility. Come on, that's crazy. Unless it was a dog racing track and there's some gambling going on. That'd be fun. Hey, parents, go off, spend some money, while the kids ride the teacup a couple more times. It's all good. But hey, this is pretty cool. It's kind of surreal if you think about it. There was a professional racing track in Orlando, and it's going to hold one of the biggest open wheel races in North America at this point, just because of the hype and everything that's going on with the split and everything. It's a big deal at this point.
Yeah, and he gives the command to start engines. That's really the cool thing. Lady and gentlemen, start your engines, which is very nice of him to include Lynn St. James in that. And not just say driver, start your engines, let everyone know that it's lady and gentlemen, that there's a female driver in the field, which was a big deal at the time for sure.
But Mark, here's the big question. Do you think when like they wave the green flag, the Disney officials are like, nah, man, here's what you really need to say. You need to be like, here we go with the most magical race on earth, because it is technically the most magical place on earth.
Yeah, I feel like we should just beat that. Just keep beating that into
Keep
people.
magic,
Right?
beat magic into people. I mean, that's what they do at Disney. They just beat you with magic.
Yeah, we're underway. The race going on. This is it's a fast racetrack, James. Going quite
it's
fast.
mini Pocono. Pocono's fast too. Just make it smaller. It's even faster.
Yeah. The cool
I don't know
thing
how people can pass on this track though, Mark. Like seriously, like you can't even like you like I'm gonna just dip out and like make them know I'm here. They'll know I'm here, and it's like you can't get in there to pass. How you make pass? How
really guy has to like let you by, or you have to like jump him on a restart. That's
really
the only way. Or you have to crash into him.
You have to crash into him, as evident by someone that we'll talk about later. But Mark, I mean, let's first point out the fact there's live timing and scoring in this race. I know we normally complain about that in a podcast. There's like no timing and scoring.
Yeah, I know. Like last week's episode, we were like, man, like this race sucks. There's no live timing. We don't know who's in what position. So this race
completely different.
Now,
we have
cutting edge though.
Yeah, we have cutting edge. It's technically like the first time ABC's like debuting it. So it is cutting edge technology, even though it looks very dated. And it is a standard option nowadays. I gotta say, these graphics still hold up today. I would put these on an IndyCar race. I'd put that over the top ticker and then like, have like photos pop up with like Simon Pagenaud, and it's like him, and it looks like this really weird cutout like they had back in the race. Like it kind of still holds up. I like it. It's got some
I do. I like when they have the face that are, and they introduced every single driver. It wasn't like, oh, here's the top 5 and then the rest. They actually interviewed they showed
all 20 some odd of these drivers. They got their recognition for at least competing in this inaugural event. So that was good. Oh, Mark, here's your favorite part, man. Camera angles, because there's some interesting camera angles. Especially my favorite has always been the over the top cam, but that's not really featured in this one, the 360. But what is featured is you get the cool driver's head up on the carbon fiber headrest cam. You get to see the G-forces they're pulling, which is amazing. Mark, I don't know how you don't love that camera, because I hate that. Whenever there's a wreck, I hate being on that camera angle.
I just love that camera angle to the right side of the driver, like on the side pod, where you can just see like how fast they're going, and you can see their hands moving. So you can see them working. And I think Bobby Unser, he really talks about it in this race, how like they really only turn the steering wheel like a quarter inch. They don't really move it at all, because the cars turn so well, right? So like they don't really have to, it's not like F1 where you're like cranking the wheel over to make it turn. They're just going like that, So.
Yeah, and it's oval racing. It's very fine adjustments too, and you don't want to put too much wheel, because like the second you do, like you're never going to feel the back end go out. And that's the thing about open wheel cars. It's like you're so far forward, like you don't feel the rear of the car, which is, I mean, that's kind of an interesting dynamic of that kind of racing. So then our boy Bobby Unser, man, he's given some insight about the lines on the speedway. And you know what, Mark? This is not
There's one line. There's one line.
There's no 2 groove tracks. There's one line.
You run the bottom. That's it.
No, there is another line. It's called clipping the grass out of turn 3.
Yeah, or crashing into the wall. So you run the bottom. That's what you do. You hit the apex and you run the bottom. There's no top groove.
Yeah, it's just like great racing, I guess. Everything gets spread out. But I mean, like one guy that's been racing his way through the field, at least at this point in the race, is Richie Hearn. He's in the number 4 Della Pina Motorsports entry. Unfortunately, he had one of the fastest cars in Disney World, straight up. He did. We know this because they told about
the most magical car, though.
Well, no, it wasn't because it got wrecked. It never took the green flag. He wrecked it in practice, trying to make a pass on one of the Team Menard cars. And unfortunately, the team's luck didn't change. Even though he had motored his way from the back up almost into the top 10, on lap 17, he was the first caution because he goes up the track, almost hits the outside wall, keeps it off, and then just spins down to the inside. And looks like his race is done. He said he broke something, or there was like a mechanical issue with the car, or there's fluid on the track or something, but he was done. And that was a shame because he was like the most interesting person, I guess, to watch because he came up pretty far early in the race, even though we really didn't get to see it. But yeah, for shame.
Then later on, lap 28, we've got actually a battle in this race for the lead. We got Buddy Lazier and Tony Stewart going at it, and Stewart's going to wrestle the top spot away. He's going to lead 37 laps until Buzz Calkins takes the lead just before Stewart would start the first cycle of green flag pit stops. Pit stops are very important in this race, James. We're going to make 2 pit stops in this race to get the end on fuel mileage.
Yeah, it's not always about who's got the freshest rubber in this kind of racing. It's like who has the most fuel, and then from there, who has track position, because it's hard to pass, as we've been seeing. And, it's all about making it to the end with fuel. And it's interesting because there is a bit of differences between the engine manufacturers and their fuel mileages. For example, a guy like Tony Stewart, he pitted early. He's not getting the best fuel mileage compared to the guy who's racing him right now, who took the lead, Buzz Calkin. He's running a different engine, man. So he's got different fuel mileage strategy. And that's a really interesting aspect too with this racing, because of the different engine manufacturers. You get kind of different fuel mileage as well as power.
Yeah. So like you said, James, with fuel mileage, like in IndyCar racing, so the best drivers in IndyCar and in open wheel racing in general are the drivers that can save fuel. So saving fuel is especially on ovals and road courses, we'll say on all tracks, saving fuel is massive because you can spend the least amount of time on pit road, you're probably going to win the race. So guys, look at a guy like Scott Dixon, right? So to prove my point, Scott Dixon is the best fuel saver probably ever. And he has 6 championships. He can create fuel out of his mind. He just puts more fuel in the tank. His body is fuel. But yeah, like we said, so I'm kind of beating a dead horse, but if you can save fuel, you're probably going to win a lot of IndyCar races. Well, if you have a fast car, you also have to have a fast car. But.
Yeah, it's about everything. And I think that's the interesting aspect of IndyCar racing is the fuel mileage strategy of it. But Buzz Calkin, he was racing Tony for the lead when the cycle of pit stops began, inherited the lead during the cycle of pit stops. Once it's all said and done, Buzz is still in the lead, and he looks like he's got a strong hold on it over Tony Stewart. He led a lot of laps in this race, Mark, but it's going to be a long one for sure. Mark, you pointed out something interesting. It was in the broadcast. Like Tony Stewart had an extra signboard over the wall for some extra information.
You see the Instagram guy, the guy with sign who holds the cardboard sign up? It's literally a cardboard sign with marker drawn on it, and it says fuel reset. And he shows it to him to
That's huge, though, man.
Reset the fuel.
I've had that happen. I've heard that come over the radio, and just the amount of anger in the pits if a driver doesn't reset fuel is insane. So and that's interesting in this kind of racing. You have to be aware of that. Where in NASCAR, it's up to the crew to calculate the fuel. The driver just got to drive. Here, you always have to be on top of those things. And another interesting point that Bobby pointed out earlier was that they're driving sequential gearboxes, and it's something you notice too when Stewart peels out. He doesn't really peel out. He kind of just slowly goes out, and then he kind of peels out. I feel like he was going in second gear, not to burn the clutch maybe. Then he popped it back into first or something. I don't know. Or maybe he started in first and he just revved it up and got in second, because he really came out of pit road gingerly, not trying to spin the tires.
He didn't want to hurt the car, James, because the thing in this race is attrition. The first race of the IRL ever had a lot of attrition.
Yeah, I mean, we had your boy in it too. I mean, Ari Lyondike, Scott Brayton, Stephen George, Johnny Parsons, and unfortunately, Buddy Lazier. They all had some kind of mechanical issue before the halfway point of the race, or just past the halfway point of the race. And you know what, Mark? Racing's all about survival, whether it's about the engines or the chassis. Your equipment's got to last to the end.
Yeah, and the thing with this race too is a lot of the teams coming up here were road to Indy teams and teams that were new to kind of this form of racing, and they were using old cars. They didn't usually they build a new car for every year. They were using the 95 cars.
It's a rule. It's got to be a year older. You can't compete.
So it was a lot of learning curve and a lot of rookie drivers too, right? A lot of really young drivers in this series. So, everyone's learning how to take care of their equipment. These are things that are going to come over time. So, a lot of attrition, a lot of problems. And speaking of problems, we get a second caution when the number 17 is Stan Waddle. So he spins off of turn 1 and makes contact with the inside guardrail. And this caution falls right during the final cycle of pit stops, which is always just throws a wrench into things, or as our friend John Hinoff would say, it'll throw a spanner into the works. And during that caution, spot the number 4 car.
Yeah, man, he's just chilling there behind the guardrail. I spotted that 4 car. I'm like, hey, why didn't they take that back to the garage?
They just left it. It wasn't hurting anybody. Yeah. It was out of the way. Let's just.
But doesn't the team want to load up and go home? I mean, that's their second car of the weekend.
No, they're in Disney World. They don't want to leave.
Yeah, they want to leave.
No.
You've had a miserable weekend. You just had to replace another car. You had punishment pizza the night before. Don't you want to leave? Jeez. I don't know. It's just sitting there. It's weird. But anyways, racing exists for a bit, but then there's a caution. And the third caution of the day would come out on lap 178, number 14, the other AJ Foyt entry, driven by Davey Hamilton. Oh, man, it pounds the outside of the turn 2 wall. And that's the end of AJ Foyt's Lola. And number 14, the flagship car of the team. Now, during this caution, we're going to hear the man who can always help you save some big money, John Menard, a.k.a. Tony Stewart's car owner.
That dream came true. Sat on the pole with Scott Brayton last year. Now the dream is to win the first IRL race. And, John, the question is, do you have enough fuel with Tony Stewart?
Well, I think with this yellow now we're going to be okay. It's real close, but I think we'll be just okay.
Describe your feelings, because this is the first time that you've been in this environment with 3 cars out here near the end of the race and have a good chance for the win.
Well, I think I'm doing more laps around in the circle than he is, so it's pretty exciting stuff. It's a lot of fun. It's been a great day. I just hope Tony can bring it home here now.
Let's check in with Gary Gerald.
And again with
But, before we get going with this restart, Mark, it's kind of odd to see that Roberto Guerrero, he's just chilling. He's sitting in between first and second.
This could be solved by a simple wave around, but we don't do those. So
not yet in IndyCar.
No, we don't do those. So if the lap car, when the pace car picked up the leader, if the lap car was behind the leader and in front of second place, if nobody pits, that's just what happens. They restarts in second and holds up the other cars. So,
Yeah, and it's just as bad as NASCAR was too, where it's like, oh, say if everybody pitted but the lap cars, well, guess what? The lap cars are now going to restart in front of the leaders, who are probably going to start like 5th or 6th in line. And that's the thing. It's also a single file restart too. So all of these restarts are just painful if you're not the leader. And this just doesn't help. This doesn't help Tony Stewart's case. So he obviously doesn't get the best restart here because he's behind Roberto. He gets around Roberto. Seems like he's catching up to Buzz, but he really needs another caution. Unfortunately, yet fortunately, he gets it. The unfortunate factor was it involved his teammate, Eddie Cheever Jr. in the number 3, which is also the second Menards car to go out of the race now. So, yeah, that's a bummer. So Cheever, he got into it with the number 41 of Scott Sharp. And Mark, that was a really good point of what we said earlier. Sometimes if you want to pass somebody, you just got to run into him.
Scott Sharp, you know what? He went in there and he had position, and Cheevers didn't see him. But don't worry.
I mean, you could also see Cheever like in the replay. He looks over and checks his mirror out, and I'm pretty sure he was probably thinking, he's going to back off. I'm going to have my line going in. He doesn't really have the line on me. But I mean, at this point in the race, you want to go for every gap you have.
Yes, because if you don't go for a gap that exists,
that's a good racing driver. It's 11 laps to go. The heat is definitely on at this point. But I think the craziest part of the accident was the fact when the leaders come around to take the caution, Tony Stewart, for some reason, flies up on the outside. And it's probably because the safety vehicle was coming up onto the track just off the pit road exit. And it probably went directly across the track, blocking Stewart's path on the inside line. So Tony took the evasive action of going to the outside. Unfortunately, he's trying to slow down while he's going through the marbles. And then he's trying to dodge all this debris. He knocks the car off the outside wall. I mean, he barely misses his safety vehicles, dude. It was like a scary incident there. But luckily, he misses everything. I mean, that was a little bit of a crazy incident there.
And Eddie Cheever will have you know that accident wasn't his fault. So no accidents are ever his fault.
Oh, Eddie Cheever. Oh, so now here's the big question. Stewart had this like little contact with the wall. What does that do to his race car? And also, does he even have a puncture from running over all of that debris? He literally like ran over his teammate's wing too in the replay.
Can't pit now though, right? So
No.
It's too late in the race. You just got to go with it. By the way, him and Calkins are the only two cars in the lead lap. So you're not. Why would you pit now? You know, it's just
You're just basically
chance.
losing track position at this point.
That's the thing. And we get the final restart when the race goes back green. Stewart does get a good jump. He gets really close to Calkins, but as you can see, like he just
Can't pass.
doesn't. Seems like a good battle, but then Buzz just pulls away. He just goes to infinity and beyond because he's Buzz, and that's what Buzz does.
That's what
I
Buzz
had
does.
to get a Toy Story joke in there.
He finally did. It was good. Yeah.
Toy Story came out this year too, so
Yeah, it came out the same weekend as Balto. Fun
There you
fact
go.
about that. I know
Balto,
that ran on
solid
here.
flick by the way.
Balto
like, underrated film.
Balto over Toy Story any day. Like it's
Okay,
so
that's
good.
no,
You
that's
can't argue that.
incorrect.
It's got like feel good feels. It's just nostalgic.
It's not as
special.
good as Toy Story though.
I
Also,
mean,
Toy Story came out in '95. My apologies. So it did come out the year prior.
But you know what, Mark? Forever in history, it will be known that Buzz Calkins was the winner of the first ever Indy Racing League event. Or was he? Because who is Buzz Calkins? I mean, I don't even know if he's a real person, Mark. I mean, look at him in his Victory Lane interview. He could be a cyborg. He just jumps out of his car. He still has his helmet on. He hasn't said a word. Look at him. He's just keeping his helmet on too, so you can't even hear his robot cyborg voice. He's deaf. Oh wait, no, he just took his helmet off. He's not a cyborg. He's a real person. That's my bad.
I've the thing is, like, I had never heard of Buzz Calkins until we watched this race.
And he just drove a phenomenal race too. Like seriously,
Yeah.
he went up there and had a fast car and he drove like a veteran. He didn't really get like antsy when he was trying to pass Tony before the cycle of green flag stops. He knew he would stop. He was really mature when he got on a pit road because when he did, he was like the first pit stall and he came in really slow. Really great race, man. He deserved the victory. He drove the clean race and had the fastest car.
And the other important note of this race too, like I think I mentioned it before, is only 2 cars finished on the lead lap, and only 9 cars finished the race. So kind of tough for the first IRL race. 20 cars started the race, only 9 finished.
But you know who finished? 8th? Lynn St. James. Her best career IndyCar finish.
And she had trouble all day. She ended up finishing 8 laps down. They had mechanical problems with the car, so kind of tough to see that happen. But
still, she had Lifetime on that car, so represent Lifetime. It's a good movie right there, Mark. Wasn't there a Lifetime movie about NASCAR?
Probably.
It was like really bad.
Probably loosely based on NASCAR, but
I think it was like filmed during an ARCA race too in the mid 90s. I'll have to look it up, but it's pretty bad. But anyways,
we should review that if that exists somewhere.
It probably does. It's probably a TV movie too, so we can review it. And it's like, who's gonna sue us? Paramount Plus? Yeah, right.
Right after we review Herbie Fully Loaded.
Man,
Buzz Calkins in the number 12 Bradley Food Mart's Total Petroleum MBNA sponsored Ford Cosworth XB powered Raider chassis. Got it all out. He wins the 1996 Indy 200 at Walt Disney World Speedway.
Big winner. Where you going, Buzz? Oh, I'm going to Indy. Oh, so cliche, bro. Why couldn't you just say like you were going to like a cool part at Disney World? I mean,
because when you win the Super Bowl MVP, you say, I'm going to Disney World.
I thought that's just like if the quarterback was talking.
No, that's what you're supposed to say, right? Because they'd always go on like a media tour at Disney World the next day.
It makes me think of that movie with Dwayne Johnson where he's the dad. Like he found out he's a dad and he's got a daughter, but he's also a pro football player. The game plan. Because like in the end, he's like got to say he's got to go eat some really dumb burgers. It's like, you got to say this. You're going to get paid so much money to say this if you win the big game and say this. Like, I wonder, other than the free resort visit, do you get anything else by saying that? Or do you just have to say that?
I think it's just part of the deal,
The deal of playing football.
Yeah, it's just
The
part
deal
of
of winning the award. Like, what if you didn't say it? How much trouble would you be? Would you be as in much trouble as when Emerson Fittipaldi decided to drink orange juice instead of milk?
Yeah, I'm still upset about that.
I thought that was baller. I was like,
Nah,
I just drove this
criminal.
really long race. I want something zesty and refreshing.
That's
I want
criminal,
some
though.
juice.
No,
Springsteen.
wrong. You want protein after you've been in the car for that long. Milk has
Yeah, but I don't want
protein in it.
milk. That's just
You
gonna make
drink pure sugar and acid. That sounds horrible.
Ah, it's way better. It's like Gatorade.
Okay, so if you won the Indy 500, what milk would you pick?
I know you can pick any milk, and it might
Pick
be
any milk you want.
It might be dumb of me to say chocolate, but you know what? I'm gonna say skim milk because skim milk's fire.
If I won the Indy 500, it's like you won the whole milk. I never drink whole milk, but I would drink whole milk if I won the Indy 500.
What if you were like really?
I don't drink cow milk at all anymore.
That's what I was about to say. What if you don't? What if you're vegan?
Almond milk.
Do you like? Can I have oat milk, please?
Or soy milk, or whatever. But we drink soy milk, so like I don't, But
I like
go whole
chocolate
milk.
cashew pea milk. It's pretty good.
God, man, cashew milk's good, especially you make lattes with it.
I'm more of a
this is the
coconut milk
flashback
kind
to
of
coffee
guy.
podcast.
Yeah, so if you like your coffee, come get it here or bring it to us because, man, I'd love some coffee right now. I might go get some. I don't think Starbucks is open at this hour when we're recording this because, as you can see on the video version, Mark's got a dark window unless he's living in Alaska.
It's quite dark. Yeah, it's very dark and cold
It's
inside.
30 days of night.
Miserable.
But yeah, that was a fun race. I mean,
It
it's
was,
a great
man.
watch.
That's like history.
Like about an hour, man. Yeah,
it's about an hour and 26 minutes.
All said and done.
But like 20 minutes of pre-race. So
yeah, and there's two good versions up right now.
Yeah.
One
IndyCar actually posted the race to their channel, so you can actually
10 years
go
ago
take
they
a look.
uploaded this, and that's probably the best quality version. I'd go recommend watching that because if you do that, you're really supporting IndyCar's efforts of archiving their content on YouTube, and you're supporting that they were really the first racing series to do this. Seriously, like NASCAR might get a lot of hype for doing this nowadays, but IndyCar has been doing this for over a decade. They've been uploading old races onto YouTube and really old random races. Like there's kart races from Pocono when it was IndyCar at Pocono. You can find those on YouTube. It's pretty cool. So I'd go check out, I think it's like NTT IndyCar series on YouTube. Go check them out. They're always fun to watch. Yeah, it was good though to break up our stock car racing filled podcast normally with some open wheel content, which was always cool. And definitely an interesting time of open wheel racing because this was when we were kids and we were like in awe by this, but we really didn't understand it. And now after kind of looking back, it's still a lot to take in, but
there's a lot of history there and it can be very confusing. And there's some good stuff on YouTube you can check out about the split and whatnot and learn more about the two different open wheel series.
Look up also a lot of Robin Miller stuff too, because he was in there at the time in the trenches, man.
Yeah,
writing a lot of
we
stuff.
might not like a lot of his takes, but Robin Miller's got a lot of history in a lot of the articles that he's written. So go check those out. Fun, James. We have to rate the race though, right? So we know what we learned. We learned all kinds of history, but we have to rate the race. So
if I'm gonna rate this race, my man Paul Page is on here. I can't do my man Paul wrong.
James is gonna give this like a 9-banger probably. It's got Paul Page, man.
It's got Paul Page. Oh man, Paul Page.
It's at Disney.
Gary Gerald too. I mean, that's like that's the ESPN NHRA lineup right there. Shout out to Lee from Monday Morning Racer for the NHRA stuff. I'll give it a 7. I thought it was a good broadcast. It was very entertaining. I like how short the race is. I like that there's constant updates. You have line timing and scoring. There really isn't a lot of action though, per se. I think this race has a lot of great nostalgic factor for sure. It's really weird to kind of watch the IndyCar series at this time. So, I mean, even just going back and watching this 1996 season isn't like a killer of your time. I think this is actually kind of entertaining. And if people watch races kind of the way we consume them, like if you just like casually watch them or if you have them on as background noise, this is really great. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I couldn't get any higher than a 7, man.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to be harsh for this one. So I'm going to take off my rose-colored glasses I'm going to take off my context
You're gonna
glasses that
you're
are
gonna
like,
take off your
first
IndyCar
ever
niceness.
IRL race, and it's at Walt Disney World. The race itself was like not great. So I was
Just
like
be real. I
harsh
want to see
last
your
week.
shrewd face. I
I
want
was
to see you be
harsh.
mad.
I was harsh about the Topeka race. I gave it a 6. I got to give this one a 6 as well.
Oh, that's it? I thought it was gonna be harsher.
Well, I was gonna go 5, then I thought that was kind of mean.
What?
So
That's passing.
okay, you know what? I'm gonna go 5. So I'm gonna give it a 5 because it is cool. The history is great. First ever IRL race, so that's awesome. Walt Disney World. We got to talk about the history of Walt Disney World Speedway, but the race itself is really boring. Not a lot of passing, but you get some good insights. It's a well put together like product. Like it's like enjoyable to watch. But the race itself is just like not super great. So not a lot of passing, not a lot of battles. Like, like you said, live timing and scoring are good insights on pit stops. And Bobby Unser is always great because he gives really good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But I think 5 is fair. So that's an average of 6.
So either way, we hit both your numbers. So
it's still like a C- race, which is not terrible.
It's a D really, but D plus. I mean, I think the history of it is important to look at. I mean, if you're serious about like saying, hey, was the 1996 IndyCar season a banger? I'd be like, no, go watch a race from Chicagoland from the mid 2000s and have your mind blown. Like seriously,
watch the 2005 one where they're all tied for points at the end.
God,
and it's like whoever finishes highest wins this thing.
I know, like they had the perfect system when they finally put that as their championship race at the end. I remember that. That was barn burner IndyCar racing, and that was important. That happened because of this race. IndyCar would not have been at that level if it didn't have its founding moments. And this is one of them. It's important to look back at it. Definitely learn a thing or two for sure. Might make you a smarter person at the next cocktail party you're at, or if you're talking to somebody, or if you want someone to leave you alone to start talking about IndyCar.
That's my thing. Yeah. I was going to say, what cocktail party are you going to?
None. I don't go to those. I don't go to any social events. Normally, I'm the kind of person that is like, hey, yeah, you know that Ricky Rudd was definitely the most underrated NASCAR driver, and people just start walking away from me. I'm like,
fun story. So like when James and I go to NASCAR races together, when we get back to the hotel, we like watch an old race. Like other people go out and then we're like, let's go back, let's get a pizza and go watch the 1997 Quicker State 400, and that's what we do. So,
yeah, I mean, it's each their own. Everyone's got that.
You like what you like, right? That's the thing.
I feel like there's a good amount of people that do like this content and do like to watch this kind of content. It's entertaining for sure. And it's funny because like I'll watch it and Kaylin's watching. She's like, do you know who wins the race? I'm like, yeah, I think this person wins. Do you still find it entertaining? I'm like, yeah, there's so much stuff that happens.
You're learning about everything that happened to lead up to that point. And that's what's really cool about watching old races. So
yeah, there's always something to be gained. So it's always about how you look at the situation, not really what it's given you. So sometimes open up your mind and have a little broader perspective and everything could be a little bit better, people. But yeah, this was a fun one. I like that we flipped the script really quick on this one. And we learned a lot. We got some good content out there for the peeps, and the peeps got to learn a lot about the man who was like Michael Eisner, Tony George. But what's sad too, if you think about it, is like how many years open wheel racing suffered because of this whole split.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it really, and NASCAR really has to thank them for that. NASCAR got a huge boost in popularity when people stopped watching IndyCar racing because it was too confusing.
And not only that, just think how many casual people that could have been turned into race fans were turned into NASCAR fans rather than open wheel racing fans because of all of that. I mean, really, to the fans, yes, the product on the screen should be entertaining and exciting, and NASCAR hit all the senses and was able to do it where it seemed like open wheel racing just kept taking jabs at each other and then just started making things more complicated. And
you said it was an ego thing, right?
Yeah,
that's really a big part of it.
Like your ego's at the door, man. Seriously.
Yeah, but we'll wrap it up for this week. We, as always, are the Flash Track Podcast. Thanks to our partners at Blue Emu with a wide variety of products to get you maximum relief for your tired and aching muscles and joints. Follow Blue Emu on social media right now at Blue Emu1 on Twitter and Instagram. They're doing some awesome promotions, all kinds of different stuff going on. They were tweeting at Marcus Lemonis earlier today. That was kind of cool. They might be doing some stuff there. James is also doing some really cool stuff over on the Blue Emu channels every week with a maximum strength moment of the race. So check that out for sure.
It's the maximum strength move of the race. That's right. It could be anything. It could be a driver making a pass. It could be a crew chief making a gutsy call. Or it could be that guy on pit road who's like, oh, crap, I dropped the lug nut. And he put it back on so fast that you didn't even see it. I mean, could be that can that just fell.
There you
go. Never know. Something happens
right there.
Something happens in a race, and it's a moment that's defining. So I like to highlight it, and definitely thanks to Blue Emu for giving us a platform and giving me a platform with that. So it's kind of a cool little experiment we're doing. So we'll see how it goes throughout the rest of the year. But definitely, if you have maximum strength relief needs for any of your tired muscles or joints, and you want a product that works fast and won't stink, and just so happens to be an official partner of NASCAR and Major League Baseball. Just saying, it's called Blue Emu, and you can go pick it up. Major retailers like Walmart, or go find it on Amazon. So get it shipped Prime next day, something. I don't know. Get it to your door, in your bathroom, wherever you need maximum strength relief. So check out Blue Emu. Well, Mark, that is going to probably wrap it up for this.
I think so.
It's been a fun one, man. This one is always good to step out of the comfort zone, a little bit of stock car racing.
Yeah, we'll be doing the same thing next week. We'll be stepping out of that stock car racing comfort zone some more. So that'll be a little hint on what's coming your way. But the most miraculous thing about this episode, James, is I made it all the way to the end without making a 69 joke.
I'm so proud of you, Mark, because you know why? That's nice. That's nice. 69. The one number that's never allowed to run in NASCAR. But forever, Kentucky Kid with that 69, man. Seriously, on that note, Kentucky Kid, man. Forever, Nikki Hayden.